Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to talk about a little bit later in the show. Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report will join us. Talk some salary cap with him, as he is one of those salary cap gurus. We begin by talking Browns with Kay Cabot from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. She is the beat reporter. Kay, you wrote earlier this week, Browns likely to move on from Jarvis Landry, and kind of how does that affect the wide receiving room, and what goes into that, and what are you hearing?
Well, the ship has pretty much sailed on Jarvis Landry. They really aren't having any more discussions about Jarvis coming to Cleveland unless something changes drastically. I don't foresee that happening. I believe he will move on, and he will choose another team. There are a number of teams that are interested in him, and I believe he will probably sign with someone sooner than later, maybe get in someone's mini camp, get going in someone's off-season program, but it will not be the Cleveland Browns from everything that I am hearing. And the way that that impacts the receiver room is, at this point, they're going to leave it with one really accomplished Pro Bowl type veteran in Amari Cooper, and then a lot of younger guys. So they're going to have to hope that Amari Cooper stays nice and healthy, and that they don't need, another veteran in to step in there, because at this point, they really don't have one. They're going to be counting on David Bell, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz. And at this moment, there really are no plans to sign another veteran, such as a Will Fuller or a Cole Beasley.
When you look at that, is that more of a belief in Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones, or is it just kind of the way the salary structure of what they're building kind of has fallen?
You know, I think what it is, it's a vote of confidence in Deshaun Watson and his ability to raise the level of play of everyone around him. So I think they really believe that he will make Donovan Peoples-Jones better, that he will make David Bell good as a rookie, that he will make Anthony Schwartz better. That's what it is more so than anything. I feel like they believe that they've got a good enough quarterback now that they don't have to have all-star receivers at every position.
When you look at that wide receiving room, and we had kind of talked about this a little bit last time, there are different skill sets. Do you see that? You've got a guy that plays over the middle, a guy that plays outside, some bigger targets. Do you see kind of all the elements that you would want in a wide receiver room potentially there?
Yes, and the other thing to remember is that they're looking at this more globally in terms of pass catchers, not just receivers. So, they will also be counting Harrison Bryant into this mix and David Njoku into this, because obviously they use those guys a lot in the passing game. You can include Kareem Hunt in there as well. So they have plenty of guys, veterans, different body types, different speeds that can go out there and catch passes for Deshaun Watson. But in the receiving room alone, you do have, Amari Cooper, who's basically the total package. He's got size, speed, route running. Then you have David Bell, who's got, more of the slot skills, the ability to get open, the ability to catch the ball really, really well. You've got the speed in Anthony Schwartz. You've got the go up and get the contested ball in Donovan Peoples-Jones. So they do have a little bit of everything. And
again, young and you would think ascending, because it's guys that are getting a chance to kind of show what they have. Yesterday, we got word that Deshaun Watson will be deposed later this week, also several days in June. Adam Faris is the crime reporter for cleveland.com who you kind of tweeted out that this was going on. And then it's increasingly likely that these civil suits won't come to trial or be resolved until the end of the season. When you look at that, is there any indication at all what that means for Deshaun Watson in this season?
Well, if that truly does happen, and I know that Tony Busby, the plaintiff's attorneys, will push for something to happen before the season, but time is starting to run out on that a little bit. And they have agreed that between August 1st and I believe it is March 1st, that they will not go to trial. So it would be hard to get one in before that. There are, some attorneys will be out of town and different things like that. So this could potentially mean that those 22 civil suits do not get tried until after March 1st, and that this could stretch into next season. In terms of the NFL's punishment or sanctions, that's another story entirely. The NFL has to determine and decide if they are ready to go ahead and hand down its decision on sanctions against Deshaun Watson before this season, or if they want to gather more information, see what happens with the civil suits, let him play this season and move on and make that decision for next season. So everything is still up in the air at this point.
Is there any way you could see them potentially giving him a suspension, then letting the civil suits play out and him getting another suspension? I mean, is that possible? I don't know that. It's a unique situation because of the timing of the suits and whatnot.
I mean, I suppose I could see that happening, but I suppose it could happen, but I can't really see it happening. It's possible, but I don't think the NFL is going to want to adjudicate this on two different occasions. I think they're going to want to wrap up their investigation when they feel comfortable that they have all of their information and have done all of their due diligence, and then they will make a determination after that.
The schedule comes out in a couple days. It's Thursday at 8 p.m. Do you think that will give us any clues as to what the NFL is thinking in terms of a possible Deshaun Watson suspension? I know you were asked this in one of the Hey Mary Kay columns. So what about that?
I don't think so. I mean, if anything, maybe they would leave the primetime games out of that very first portion of the season, maybe do something like that. But for the most part, I don't think that they will let this possible suspension dictate any of the schedule making, because, again, no one really knows what's going on with this. No one knows where it's going. And it's just too hard to predict any of it. And I think they'll just proceed as though he's going to be playing football.
All right. Again, this is from another one of the Hey Mary Kays. What are the chances Baker Mayfield actually starts for the Browns if Deshaun Watson happens to not be available for one reason or another and Baker's still on the team?
Highly, highly unlikely. They have Jacoby Brissett as their number 2. That's going to be the plan going forward. He's here in the offseason program, working, learning the scheme. They have Josh Dobbs. If for some reason Baker Mayfield is still around, I think it would take an absolute lot for them to get to the point where they would put him into a football game. Now, having said that, if for some reason Deshaun Watson is out for a lengthy period of time and Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, I think that puts you into decision-making mode. But, a lot would have to happen to get to that point. And so I just think it's highly unlikely Baker will be playing for the Cleveland Browns again.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the draft. A voicemailer wants to know about the Browns developing wide receivers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns and developing wide receivers.
How you doing? This is E.T. Long time no see. I had a question, just like how the Browns have struggled to pick kickers over the years. Have the Browns ever truly been able to develop wide receivers? What was the last receiver that we developed, that we drafted, that became something? Was it Josh Gordon? Didn't last that long, but, I mean, he showed some high production. I was born in 95, so I only remember the Browns when they came back. So was it Quincy Morgan, Braylon Edwards? I don't know. Should the Browns go out and get some former great athletes such as a Chris Carter who has Ohio ties, or someone like that to help develop wide receivers? Because eventually we're going to have to get off of Amari Cooper, and we need to have the ability to develop superstar wide receivers. Thank you, and have a nice evening.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, it's a really good question. I would say it's tough to develop any position when you're constantly turning over head coaches and general managers, because the philosophies tend to change.
Well, certain teams are better at developing positions than other teams are. And I would have to say that they still have to prove themselves in terms of being able to draft and develop receivers here. Now, Donovan Peoples-Jones was a 6th round pick, and he obviously is coming along really well. And I think he's much better this year with Deshaun Watson. Anthony Schwartz still has to prove himself. That was a pretty high pick, that 3rd round pick from last year. So they have to demonstrate that, that he's going to be worthy of that pick. And then David Bell is another 3rd round pick this year. So they've got an opportunity going forward here over the next couple of years to prove that they can go out and find a guy in the 3rd round and turn him into a viable and good starting wide receiver. The last one I would say was probably Josh Gordon. And then maybe before him, probably, a Braylon Edwards, in terms of just drafting a guy and really turning him into, a star receiver or a 1,000-yard receiver. Some of the other guys that have come through here lately obviously have been acquired through trades, and now Amari Cooper through free agency. So yeah, this regime will have to prove that it can draft and develop receivers.
Well, you mentioned it. What positions have the Browns had some success developing and drafting? What positions do you think they do the best at doing that? And I know you've written about this as well.
Well, I would say right now, defensive backs would be the place to look. This team so far, they did a nice job with Denzel Ward. And then last year, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit the year before, safety. So I would say safeties and defensive backs are a strength for this regime in particular. And we'll see. They have another opportunity to prove that this year with their top pick in this draft, Martin Emerson. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, I would say that would be a strength.
Yeah, and again, that's an important position. If the Browns had stayed at 44, and I know, again, you've written about this, and didn't trade back, who do you think the pick would have been? Who were the guys that they were looking at as potentially taken there at 44?
Well, by the time they got to 44, a couple of guys were gone that they really liked and had their eye on. 2 of those guys were cornerbacks, in Kyler Gordon out of Washington and Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. Those guys were gone. And I think the only one that they would have 100% stayed there without even thinking about it at all would have been Kyler Gordon. Andrew Booth, I think, probably would have been in the category of, do we stay or do we go? And then once he was gone, the pick would have been Alabama wide receiver John Mechie III. Now, he's coming off an ACL, but still just a very, very productive and talented SEC wide receiver. We see what so many of those guys have been able to come into the NFL and do right away, and that's what they were after. Yeah,
and again, you talk about Alabama wide receivers. Amari Cooper kind of started that trend. There's some good ones. Browns took a running back, Jerome Ford. What do you think that means for Kareem Hunt?
I don't think it means all that much for Kareem Hunt, to be honest with you. Kareem Hunt is heading into the final year of his contract. At this point, I wouldn't be shocked if both sides just decide to let that contract play out, see how it goes, and then, determine whether they want to bring him back on another 1 or 2 year contract, or if Kareem Hunt might want to go test the free agent market and see if he can't find a starting job for himself somewhere. So that's one thing to look at with him. Again, his contract is $6.25 million, but for a really good running back like him, I don't think that's exorbitant. So I think they can handle that. Who I do think it might impact a little bit more might be Dearness Johnson. If Jerome Ford comes in and demonstrates right away that he can contribute early on, both in the running game and on special teams, that could possibly mean something for Dearness Johnson, who was a restricted free agent this offseason. The Browns tendered him at the $2.43 million right of first refusal rate, but they don't have to pay him that. I mean, that's not guaranteed. So if they felt they needed to part ways with someone, if they had to, they probably could do something more in the Dearness Johnson space.
And both of those guys would, in theory, have some trade value, because when Dearness Johnson given the opportunity, he looked pretty good, and Kareem Hunt, we know what he has. These are kind of interesting. So this is from the Bleacher Report. I wanted to get your reaction to this. This is 7 trades that should happen before 2022 season begins. They have the Browns trading in the division to the Bengals, Kareem Hunt, for Cincinnati's 3rd and 5th round picks. You see the numbers that you delineated, 6.25, 0 dead money attached. Just your reaction to that.
You know what? I mean, there were some intra-division trades during draft weekend, and so it does happen, but I don't really envision that happening so much between the Browns and Bengals for Kareem Hunt right now. I just don't think I see that happening. I think he's too valuable. He is somebody that could come back and hurt you. He could hurt you in the playoffs. So I don't envision that happening.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't think it, because the Browns consider themselves contenders, and that's one of your elite playmaker guys. This one's another one that's kind of a head scratcher. So same article, they have the Browns trading Baker Mayfield to the Texans for a 2023 7th round pick. Just your reaction to that one.
Well, I mean, the Texans and the Browns were not interested in making him be part of the trade involving Deshaun Watson when the Browns traded 6 picks and got 1 back along with Deshaun. That they were not interested in Baker Mayfield at that time. So I don't really think that is on the horizon, but you never know. I mean, things change. That was back when the Browns were not willing to pay a bunch of the $18.86 million fully guaranteed contract for Baker Mayfield. Now they know that if they want to move him, they have to pay some of that, and they will do that. They're definitely up for doing that now. But I just don't know, again, about the Texans, although they are doing business with the Texans. Had another draft day trade, we know that. But yeah, for the most part, I don't know if that one's on the horizon either.
Yeah, that was my thought, is if he wasn't part of the Deshaun Watson trade, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to take another time out. Other side of the break, we talk a little bit more about Deshaun Watson and also some free agents still on the horizon. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. Every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Visit takemefishing.org.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the NFL and Deshaun Watson.
Hey, how you doing? This is Harry Davis. I've been a Browns fan since the arrival of Butch Davis from the University of Miami. I had a question about the Deshaun Watson situation. Wouldn't it be in the NFL's best interest to hold off on his suspension? Because if they were to suspend him this year before all his trials end, wouldn't that put it in a Ray Rice situation if they tried to suspend him again, even if he was guilty on any of them? Thank you for listening. Go Browns. Woo, woo, woo.
As always, we appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, we've kind of touched on that. What are your thoughts? Does it behoove the NFL to wait?
Well, the NFL isn't basing their decision on the civil suits, and the fact that he wasn't charged criminally, I think has more of an impact on what the NFL will do than any of these civil suits will. So they can go ahead and do what they want when they want to, and their investigation is underway. Will they wrap it up in time to hand down a suspension for this season? It remains to be seen, but they're not going to let the civil suits per se dictate what they do. Now, what they probably should do, though, is make sure and do a lot of investigating and a lot of digging into making sure that nothing else is coming down the pike before they go ahead and mete out their justice. And
again, it's likely to be the code of conduct that they have, that it's going to be a violation of the code of conduct that ends up getting suspension, correct? That's usually what these kind of things, are folded into.
Yes, it's the personal conduct policy. And, the interesting thing about that now is that under the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement, it's not just Roger Goodell deciding the suspension like he used to do back in the day with Josh Gordon. Whenever he was getting suspended, it was Roger Goodell deciding what it was going to be. Now it's jointly appointed by the NFL and the NFLPA. And her name is Sue L. Robinson, a former U.S. district attorney. And so she will be determining what the suspension is, but then Roger Goodell can also change whatever she comes up with. So it's very arbitrary.
Yeah. All right. Again, I know this is one of the Hey Mary Kay topics. Do you think the uncertainty surrounding Deshaun Watson affects Jadeveon Clowney potentially re-signing with the Browns?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that Jadeveon wants to come back. I think the Browns want him back. I think they're just trying to agree on the money for one thing. And I think that, for the most part, something will probably get done sooner than later. The Browns had also considered Jerry Hughes, but he's re-signing now with the Texans. So, I think that also, he probably has some idea that the Browns are going to re-sign Jadeveon. And I don't think that Deshaun's situation will factor in.
So the gut feeling is Clowney is back and kind of fills in that 1A, if you will, to Myles Garrett at the edge rusher?
Yes, absolutely. And, those guys paired very well together last year. They stayed healthy. The Browns got 16 sacks out of Myles that way, 9 out of Jadeveon. I think they can do something similar. I mean, they're very excited about Alex Wright, but I still think it would help to have a proven edge rusher on that side.
Yeah, and imagine Wright kind of soaking up knowledge from both Clowney and Myles Garrett. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
Hi, this is Tim from Cleveland. I'm calling to say I just think that what Baker did in his time here is slightly overrated. He had some of the best rosters we've ever had in the modern Browns era, and in all that time he won one playoff game. I think some fans are taking it entirely too seriously with what he did and giving him way too much credit. Thank you.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. And Mary Kay, if you want both sides of an argument, mention Baker Mayfield. I mean, what he did was good, but I think Browns fans were looking for a quarterback for so long that they kind of made it a little bit more than it was.
Well, I do think there's something to be said for the fact that it was a pretty talented roster the whole time that he was here. He had a great offensive line. Myles Garrett was here the whole time. Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, you go on and on and on. Odell was here, Jarvis, David Njoku. There were a lot of really talented football players on this team. They really built around him and gave him every opportunity to succeed. And he did do that in 2020. He did the most that he could with that roster. And, that was when Odell Beckham Jr. was injured for much of the season anyway. So I do think that, he did great things for the Browns that year. And he did help dig this team out of the doldrums. He brought a lot of life and energy back to it. But obviously they saw things on film that made them believe they needed a significant upgrade at quarterback. And so I think that the Browns probably would agree with the caller.
All right. Before we go to break, is there, and I know we've both been around long enough, you never say never. Is there any way you see Andrew Berry releasing Baker Mayfield?
I doubt it. I mean, there's only one reason why he might have a small bit of incentive to do it. If they can't find a team, if they can't find a trade partner, if they do release him and he signs with another team and he can find a little bit of a bidding war and get somebody to pay him some money, then that comes off what the Browns would pay him. So, if a team knows that the Browns have to pay him the 18.86, they're not going to be motivated to give him much of anything anyways. So yeah, I mean, it's just a difficult situation all the way around. And, I really don't see them cutting him.
Do you think it kind of goes into, June, July? How long do you think it gets drawn out? And no idea, huh?
No idea. I mean, something could happen this week. I mean, I wrote last week a column saying they should go back to the Panthers and try to get that deal done. They should go back to anybody who has expressed the slightest bit of interest in Baker Mayfield and try to get some kind of a deal done, because that's what they need to do. They need this off their plate. They're going to have to eat some of the money. And once they get that situated, then they can all move on and not have the distraction of Baker Mayfield anymore.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, how much improved is the Browns roster as we go forward? We'll hear from one national expert. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns football with Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot. Let's head Emmanuel Acho from FS1's Speak for Yourself. The most improved teams in the NFL this offseason.
Cleveland Browns are the most improved team this offseason for no other
that boy
reason
look clean right
than
there.
this
That was
man,
good shape.
Deshaun Watson. If we assume that Deshaun Watson will be on the field this year, I'm not talking about the allegations and the lawsuits that are still unsettled, but if we assume that Deshaun Watson will be on the field this year, the difference between Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield is a bigger difference than any other quarterback upgrade we have seen this offseason. Deshaun Watson, with the rest of that amazing Cleveland Browns roster, I think the Cleveland Browns are now Super Bowl contenders.
Mary Kay Cabot, are you on board with Emmanuel Acho as the Browns' most improved and Super Bowl contenders?
Well, yeah, I mean, he makes a really good case there, but just in terms of biggest quarterback upgrade, I think Russell Wilson also represents a tremendous quarterback upgrade for the Broncos. So that's another one where you could say, you know, they're getting a future Hall of Famer, and that should make a tremendous, tremendous difference for them. But certainly Deshaun Watson will be a game changer for the Cleveland Browns. And I would think that, I mean, it does make them an instant Super Bowl contender.
All right, so we thought along those lines, let's take a look at what the Browns offense and defense looked like last year and what it looks like this year. We begin with the Browns offense last year at this time of the year. They had Landry and Beckham. The line, Treader is the center. Hooper, Harris, and Bryant, the tight ends. You had the fullback, and then you Chubb and Baker Mayfield. So that's last year at this time before the mini camps and whatnot. Now let's look at this year. And when you look at it, Amari Cooper, David Bell, Donovan Peoples-Jones. You have Nick Harris slotting in there, David Njoku, Deshaun Watson. Johnny Stanton, they probably won't use that as much, looking more like it's going to be the three wide receivers. But Amari Cooper, David Bell, and Deshaun Watson. The upgrade is pretty significant. Do you agree?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there is a lot of change. Again, as you mentioned, key players, you know, just starting right away with quarterback, as we talked about. But then you've got Jarvis Landry gone, Odell Beckham Jr. gone, Amari Cooper, and basically, you know, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell in their place. You've got Austin Hooper now departed, and that makes David Njoku your number one tight end. It bumps up Harrison Bryant. And so, yeah, and you should have Kareem Hunt should be healthier this season. I think that will help a lot. And same thing with Jack Conklin. Jack Conklin missed most of last season, as did Kareem Hunt. So if they get those guys back healthy, I think that will help a lot. And then, as we mentioned before, Deshaun Watson should raise the level of play of Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz. Anthony Schwartz has been sort of the forgotten man, and I think he brings a lot of speed and a lot of talent to the table. And I'll be interested to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski pointed out they liked him a lot when he was asked about him. Said, "You guys might have forgotten about him. We didn't. We are excited about him."
Right, absolutely. And you know, and I think that's significant. He really didn't have an opportunity last year to show what he could do. He missed most of the offseason and preseason with a hamstring injury, and then he missed a large chunk of the season with a very serious concussion. So coming back this year healthy and with Deshaun Watson, I think will be huge for him.
All right, let's take a look at the defense. We're going to do the same thing last year at this time to this year. So Garrett, you had Elliott and Billings, who kind of never got on the field. Jadeveon Clowney, then the linebackers, Taki, Walker, Jacob Phillips, who was hurt a lot, Ward, Johnson, Delpit, Newsome, and you see Troy Hill. Let's fast forward and look at this year. Taven Bryant slides in there, Winovich, and keep in mind, Clowney is still out there. Owusu-Koramoah, everybody's got to be excited to look and see him kind of develop. The defense, and you see that they're kind of putting Emerson starting in there as it sits now, and Newsome becomes the slot corner. If you get Clowney, that's a pretty significant upgrade. The guy that I'm excited to see, and I don't know about you, is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I want to see him in year 2.
Yeah, I mean, there are things to look forward to on this defense. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is not the only young player who's set to take a big leap in year 2. I certainly think he will do so, but I would expect the same thing from Greg Newsome. I would also expect the same thing from Grant Delpit, who really played his first year last year as well. And then you've got another infusion of young talent in Perion Winfrey, the third-round pick, and Alex Wright, their third-round pick. So absolutely 100%, these guys should be able to play some excellent defense this year. Alex Wright, now he will probably play behind Jadeveon Clowney and roll in there with Chase Winovich and be part of the rotation, but I know they're really excited about him. And Perion Winfrey, I think he's going to make a contribution right away. I think they view him as the perfect fit at 3 technique, and that he will bring some rush up the middle that they're really looking for. And so I think it's going to be a really good defense.
Yeah, and again, you see why. It's kind of interesting because last year everybody thought the roster was one of the best in the NFL at this time and, going into training camp. And when you look at it, it's been upgraded. I don't know how you argue it hasn't been upgraded.
Well, it's definitely been upgraded, and significantly at quarterback, which is obviously the most important position on the football team. If they had all of those other pieces and parts and they were still going into next season with Baker Mayfield, I don't know that anybody would be necessarily saying, oh, look, they are a bona fide Super Bowl contender. I think everyone recognizes that was a challenging situation, and that Deshaun Watson kind of takes it out of the realm of what if into definite Super Bowl contender.
All right, one of the things that plays into that, strength of schedule. Let's take a look at the strength of schedule throughout the NFL. And when you look at it, the Browns kind of towards the middle of the pack. They're tied for the 17th toughest schedule. So 32 teams right in that middle, under 500. 495 is the aggregate winning number when you look at it. They still have to face some of the nasty quarterbacks. You got Brady, you got Josh Allen, you got Justin Herbert, and you're always going to have Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson for 2 in your division. But there isn't the gauntlet like there was last year with the elite quarterbacks pretty much week in and week out.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities to play on, an easier bunch of quarterbacks. I mean, you've got Davis Mills of the Texans. No one knows exactly who the Panthers quarterback is going to be. It's probably either going to be Sam Darnold or maybe Baker Mayfield starting that game. You've got Jameis Winston probably starting for the Saints. You've got Carson Wentz, although I don't think Carson Wentz is as bad as some people do. I mean, 27 touchdowns against 7 interceptions last year. I think there's something to be said for that, but obviously they had other types of issues with him. So yeah, it's not the quarterback all-star lineup that it has been in previous years. There are definitely some winnable games here.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com for the best Browns coverage. We are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will be joined by Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Salary cap expert, knows what's going on. We'll check in with Jack Duffin. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FC4CLE has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns. So earlier today, Jerry Hughes signed with the Houston Texans, which means that's one edge rusher off the board. Let's take a look at this tweet from Jack Duffin, who will join us here in just a minute. Here is his look. Locks. Myles Garrett, a free agent, and Alex Wright. Then 2 spots for Thomas Winovich, Weatherly. Most likely free agents, Clowney, Flowers, and Ingram. And the note, Ingram was the best run and pass grades of the 3 and also had the most snaps played. Let's welcome in Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Jack, how likely do you think it is that it is, in fact, Jadeveon Clowney?
I'd pretty much write that name in pen, if I'm going to be honest. It just feels like a guarantee there. But it's nice that there's options, because the last thing you want is 3 teams bidding for one guy and then the price goes up. You're in a position, if it's not Clowney and it ends up Ingram, it doesn't bother me too much with where we are in strength of the position. You've got Myles Garrett, so it's not a make or break position, which is a really important place to be if you're ever in free agency.
Yeah, it's a guy that kind of you want to free up Myles Garrett. This was kind of interesting as well. Andrew Berry's most athletic draft class and undrafted free agent class. And again, this is something that you tweeted out again. Follow Jack on Twitter. It's at Jack Duffin. Some really good stuff comes out of this. So the scores that we're looking at are the relative athletic scores. They refer to them as RAS scores. You see the draft class kind of 7.66 in the draft class, 6.60 undrafted free agents. And here's kind of the draft that we're looking at. Emerson kind of off the boards. Wright didn't test. David Bell a little bit below. That's how he ended up in the 3rd round. And then you get to their 7th round picks, and they're both high 9s. This is on a scale of 0 to 10. When you look at that, what jumps off the page at you, and what do you think about David Bell's kind of RAS number there being so low?
Yeah, so it's a really, really good stat that just 0 to 10 by position, how athletic, going all the way back to combine data from 1987, a great piece of work from a guy called @MathBomb, Kent Lee Platt on Twitter. So it allows us to just look at a guy and go, hey, this guy's really athletic for a center or for a fullback or a defensive tackle, because, hey, a wide receiver is going to run quicker than a defensive tackle. You don't need data to work that one out. But it's really, really good to see lots of athletic guys late in the end of the draft, because you want to make a bang or you're not going to make the roster. So it gives us an option, especially when you're looking at edges. It was different in the past where we're looking at some other positions, and we had some lower ones in the past, like LeCount, who was injured. Felton didn't test well, but some of the GPS data was better, where they track a player's movement with pads on during real games in college. But no, lots of upsides. Some of the UDFAs are really, really exciting, and we'll touch on some of them later. But they're really athletic. You need those guys to come in and battle for a spot on the 53 because they only have a couple of months and then they're getting cut if they don't flash.
Is it concerning that a wide receiver has a low RAS score, or how do you kind of juggle that if you're evaluating those things?
Yeah, so it's one that he wasn't high on boards because of that, and Andrew Berry mentioned it in his sort of post draft press conference and sort of said, hey, we knew he wasn't going to be quite as quick because they've got all this data. That they got a really good idea because of the GPS tracking data of what guys will actually run before they go and do it. And not many teams use the data as much as the Browns do. They're on the leading side of data, and that's really beneficial for them, getting a head start on all the players that are available. So they know he's slightly slower, but you've got to compensate that with speed elsewhere, and they've done a really good job with that. And if he's operating more in the slot, and you look at some of these guys, Devontae Adams, not particularly great athletic data. Cooper Kupp, not great athletic data. Doesn't stop them being really, really productive, but you just need to be aware of that. And then are they doing other stuff to compensate for it? And Bell certainly is.
Another thing that you had, again, this is another one of Jack's tweets. Follow me at Jack Duffin on Twitter. 5 undrafted free agents with the best shot of making the roster. Tight end Zaire Mitchell. This guy is intriguing. Isaiah Weston, that's from Northern Iowa. Glenn Logan, Silas Kelly, and DeAnthony Bell. And again, super athletic safety. Let's talk a little bit about Weston. Weston was a guy, Jack, whose production kind of matched Christian Watson, same level.
Yeah, really, really quick, really athletic. He's just really old, so he was never going to be on the Browns draft board, but as a UDFA, an incredibly exciting prospect to come in, and let's see what he's got. He's competing with Woods and other guys that were drafted to get that roster spot, and if not, then, hey, they might try stash him on the practice squad and see his development, but he was never really going to be in their sort of top of their draft class because of that age. But he is certainly someone to keep an eye on. And there's one more I want to sneak onto that list that didn't make the tweet, is Jolly, the cornerback, that I think has actually got a great shot. Go all the way back to 2019. He was the number one graded corner for PFF out of 629 corners in college. His 2020 and 2021 wasn't quite as strong, but certainly a one to keep an eye on. Could be the next AJ Green, who obviously had great success and was number one graded corner per PFF last year. So exciting. They're doing a great job of finding these young, really talented corners.
The other thing that you wrote an article on the Orange and Brown Report about was running backs. Which ones do you think make the final roster? And kind of take us through how you look at this group. They've kind of amassed this. This has become another really strong position group for the Browns.
Yeah, so each of the last 2 years, they've carried 4 players in sort of the backs room. Last year, Felton was in the wide receiver room. 87% of his snaps were at wide receiver, not running back. But we've been told this year he's going to be featured as a running back. So we've got 6 guys competing for 4 spots. So you've got Chubb, he's a lock. And then for that number 2 spot, it's a straight up battle between Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson, because Kareem Hunt's the most expensive RB2 in the league, and Dearness Johnson's the most expensive RB3 in the league. One of those 2 guys needs to battle out. And I think something that lots of people are missing when looking at it, Kareem Hunt missed 9 games last season. And running backs, when injuries start, they don't often stop. So there's a good chance he's going to miss a chunk of this coming season. And being at $6.25 million, that is one of the most expensive RB deals. We're talking top 15, top 16 in the entire league. They might look at it and go, actually, Dearness Johnson's going to be healthy. He had a phenomenal year last year. Let's just give him the shot for 1 year. So it's very much a battle between those 2. It's a battle of talent versus availability. And quite frankly, you could be the most talented player in the world. If you're going to miss half the season, that's half a season you're not going to benefit the team. Then number 3 is locked in. Ford is going to be that guy. And then I think they'll actually move Stanton to the practice squad and not roster a fullback. I think there's a great shot for Felton in there. And it just allows a nice pipeline where they'll then go and replace Dearness Johnson or Hunt next year. They'll then, next man up, they'll draft another rookie, and constantly like that just to keep bringing talent in. But it's a series I launched called the GM Chair. each week, I'm just going to look at a different position room and talk about that 3-year outlook for the entire position. So that's all on the OBR.
Yeah, the Orange and Brown Report, and again, Jack writes for him, really good stuff. Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report and I are going to step aside, take a timeout. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to both the salary cap, some news about Jarvis Landry as well. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns football with Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Ian Rappaport had this to say about Jarvis Landry and his current situation on the Pat McAfee show.
You're not wrong, and I think a lot of people are interested. As always, money is the issue. And if you look historically at this time of year, the amount of players who've got, let's say, more than $10 million, you can count them on one hand. Like, it's like Clowney did 1 year, that was one, but there's like almost no players get more than, like, say, 10 million, which, you know, like, had Jarvis Landry, remember he visited the Falcons? We all thought that Deshaun Watson was going to go there. Like, that probably would have been about a $10 million deal. I don't know where he gets that now. And, you know, I know the Browns offered him a pretty nice 1 year deal where it would have been a pay cut, but he would have gone back there for a nice sum, turned that down. And now it's like, I would say the same thing for, same thing for anyone who gets released this time of year. Like, it is not a lot of money out there. Teams have mostly spent.
Let's welcome Jack Duffin back in. Jack, where do you feel Jarvis lands? What's most likely in your opinion?
Yeah, so the Browns made their offer back before he was cut. According to Brad Steinbrook, it's been minimum plus incentives, and Jarvis said no. He wanted multi-years, lots of money. They cut him, and then there's been nothing since. The team's and front office hasn't really been interested. Jarvis has approached them, but that's all come from Jarvis's side, not from the Browns side. And they've moved on. And where does it make most sense? We only have to look back to when Jarvis was on the trading block before. There was only two teams in the NFL that were seriously interested in him. That was the Browns and that was the Ravens. So I think it makes most sense that he lands in the Ravens, especially since they have very, very little at wide receiver. And yeah, if he's mainly there as a run blocker, that makes sense for Lamar Jackson and the game they're going to play.
Yeah, you think about it, he slots into probably their number 2 behind Rashard Bateman. And I don't know that Browns fans necessarily want to see that or hear that, but that probably makes the most sense is where Jarvis Landry ends up.
I'm not that scared of where he ends up. If we look at the production, the efficiency, it's not been there the last couple of years. So it's one where we've upgraded with Amari Cooper, Bell, targets when they're going to players like DPJ, you're seeing much more production and quality there. So it's one where we've got a loaded room, we've got a really effective quarterback, we've got players like David Njoku that should be getting the ball over him. Let's keep moving that sticks and racking up points. And we're going to do that by targeting wide receivers that are very efficient every time they're targeted and receive the ball.
All right, fair enough. Let's check in the current cap space. And again, Jack updates this regularly. You follow him on Twitter at Jack Duffin. So the Browns, in spite of all of the deals, still $27 million under the cap, and it's in a couple of weeks it's going to get $9.5 million from Hooper. He'll come off the books, and then you may get some of the $18.8 million off of Baker's. So I guess the bottom line is, Jack, they can sign whoever they want, and Andrew Berry just keeps doing a really good job kind of looking forward at that cap number.
Yeah, I'd expect them to roll over a large amount, because if we look ahead to next year, they're basically in negative with all that rollover. So it's one where they'll need to roll a large chunk over to balance that out next season, which they'll also restructure Deshaun Watson's deal next offseason to bring that down to another league minimum and push the rest back with the signing bonus. And that'll be the way they'll just operate for 2023 in particular, just to free up enough money. But yeah, they're in a really strong position by backloading all these deals, and that's the same way they operate with all the players. But I think $20 million at the minimum is what they're going to effectively roll over at the end of the season. They're not going to spend all of that money. Even if they sign a Clowney, the deal will still be backloaded, and only a small amount will come off that figure. And in terms of Baker, just because everyone's asking, this is going to take its time. The Sam Bradford trade didn't happen, which is the nearest comparable one until the start of September, guys. So if you're expecting something to happen overnight, don't. We're in it for the long haul. He's not getting a penny until we hit week 1 of the season. And what happens when deadlines approach? That's when stuff moves. So it's not going to rush. Wait for some QB to go down, and then we'll fleece them at that time.
All right. Let me ask you this. Do you think the Browns add a wide receiver to that room? And the guy I'm looking at, and I don't know if it's still possible based on who they drafted, is Will Fuller. And if we look, let's take a look at the 3 in particular Pro Football Focus grades. So Will Fuller, this is overall grade, 10th highest at 86.3. Then you look at passer rating, actually first yards per route run. There he's 3rd. Again, this is last year. I know he misses some time. But here in the passer rating, he is the top. So when he's targeted, passer rating 86.3 is the tops. He has a history with Deshaun Watson. Do you see them trying to get him on a low-end deal, or do you think that is sailed with what they did in the draft and the undrafted free agents?
Yeah, he was phenomenal. If we go back to 2020 when he was with Deshaun Watson, I think it's certainly in play. I feel that they've put themselves in a really smart position where they don't need to go out and rush, but they've probably got about a month now where they can really reassess that wide receiver room, find out how these rookies are performing, how the guys that have come back and been with them last year are looking, and then they can make a move, because you've got Will Fuller, you've got Emmanuel Sanders, you've got Julio Jones. There's several pieces out there that hopefully these rookies will all step up. But if not, they'll go and get him. And you could sign him for a couple of million guaranteed, and then incentives up, similar to the sort of Juju Smith-Schuster deal, which was really low, plus loads of incentives. So they can easily do a deal. I wouldn't be surprised if we sign a guy. It just feels like it's going to be Will Fuller. And we're in a position where, hey, if he comes in, plays really well for half a season, gets injured, we've got a deep wide receiver room now. So hopefully half a season in, these younger guys will step up, whether it's Weston, Woods, Bell, Schwartz, Felton, it could be Jakeem Grant. All of these guys can step in and contribute. So we've got a really rich and deep wide receiver room, missing a bit of top-end talent. So I think adding him smart, but we don't need to rush it. If the rookies step up, then great. If not, add him. I'd rather have too many players, and then we sit there at the end of camp going, hey, which one should we keep? Because the room's loaded, sneak maybe one onto the practice squad. I'd rather have more than not enough.
Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Make sure you follow him at Jack Duffin on Twitter. You can read him on the Orange and Brown Report. Jack, thanks so much. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jack Duffin, again, Orange and Brown Report. Also follow him on Twitter. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests G. Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and Ashley Bastock from The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on Sports for CLE. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.